I think we have everything right. Hopefully, we have everything right here. We're going to do a pretty epic live stream tonight, and we're going to talk a lot about family law. And guess what? We already have TikTok going, and the only thing that's unprepared is me. So let's get started in this bad boy, pull up the beautiful notes, and talk about this one. So, this live stream is a live stream that we're doing that is part of an overall class. And this class is to go over the basics of family law. And of course, we already have these different things. If you're a part of my free communities, which I would really recommend you being a part of, if you're watching on TikTok, it's in my profile. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's the first link down below this that says free community. You put in your email address, you get a bunch of awesome stuff that's tactical and family law. Now, in that, we have the 30 and 30 high conflict custody course. But this is in addition to this because since making that course, I've just had tons of clients. We've had more wins, we've had more losses, we've had more of everything that you can imagine in family court. And we're deep in the trenches working with men on this that are only in the highest of conflict. Like they're only in extreme cases. And there's a lot of fundamentals that we're missing that we want to be able to nail down really well. And we want to make this all so it's free content for you guys. So in this one, we're potentially going to talk about two very complicated things. I plan this live stream to be a little bit longer. And what this is doing is it's creating content so that we can make, I can turn these into the different free products, right? So either you could watch it on YouTube in the 2 hour plus version of what this will most likely be. TikTok, I'll probably run out of phone battery by that time. Or you could watch these in little 5-10 minute segments that are in the free product. So that's what's there. Let's go into this bad boy right here. So what we're going to talk about here is the laws and the statutes in relevance to family law and in relevance to high conflict custody. Now, if we go back and we look at the previous lessons, there's a couple big distinctions here. In regular custody battles, we might not need to be so aggressive. We might not need to be so paranoid. It's kind of a different game. High conflict custody is a completely different type of case. Family law, number one, is unique as it is. It's different than any other type of law. But high conflict custody is different than any other just regular family law case. So we need to understand that. And when we look at that, we need to understand where the laws play in all of this. Now, so many times we go, it's unfair and the judges suck and all these different things. And if we watch last or yesterday's lesson or wherever, however you're watching this, but as we're recording it, last night's lesson on the judges, there's way more to it that if we want to be responsible about being able to see our kids, when it comes down to judges, it's very important that we don't just default to them being corrupt and the system sucking. We have to learn all about it. And the laws are the same. And the laws are usually the biggest culprit in this kind of three parts that are super necessary for you to learn. This would be the judge, the laws, the process. They're super important because they're easy for us to get arrogant about. They're easy for us to overlook. They're easy for us to get confused with. And they're the boundaries of this crazy game we play in. So the judge is the referee. In fact, in some states, they call the judges referees. Or a referee is a referee and a judge is a judge. It could also be like a commissioner, so to speak, and that sort of thing. But the judge is the referee. The rules and the boundaries are the laws and statutes. And so many guys shoot themselves in the foot with this. So I don't want you to do that. And this could be through misunderstanding them, whether you're negligent in it or you're looking too far down a certain path and confusing yourself in it. So what I'm telling you here is this comes out of working with guys for about 20 years now, having the longest running group with men who have won custody over and over again. This came up on our free call last night, our free community call, which if you're on our email list, we have a free community call. We just got done with 4 hours of calls tonight for our paid groups. But in the free community call, somebody said, where's the place where I find pro se dads that have actually made it work? And this happens every night. They were on our call tonight. They'll be on our calls tomorrow night. They were on that call last night. And This brings up a whole different thing about pro se stuff. I have videos on this, but one of the best things for you in this is to get with groups of people that you can relate with, because you're just not going to trust anybody. Whether you're pro se or have attorneys, you really need to talk to dads going through this. Okay, so men don't lose because they don't know the law. Men lose because they think they know the law. This is really important to understand. So, in having this group where we see men lose, win and lose all the time, of when we work with them, not just for like 3 months of their case, but we'll work with them for the lifetime of their case, I can tell you that men do not lose family court because they don't know the law. Usually they do, and they come to know it. They know it because they think they know it. They think they know it and they're overly confident about it. Now, they can also be ignorant to it and negligent to it, but then they get caught up in the learning of it and over learning of it and going down the wrong rabbit holes in it. Okay, so what we want to talk about is why the laws and statutes do not necessarily decide your case. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about how the judge is going to actually use the law. That's the most important part. How is this applied in your case? So the law you might read, you might understand it, you might read case law on it, which is important. That's a great starting place. You should definitely do that. But if you stop there, it will fail you because you're not watching how that's applied, which is hard work. And you got to do that, right? And how the law bends based on the process. So this is another important part. These are the tactical things you have to learn. In the first lessons, when we talk about mentality of winners and losers, that's a lot of theoretical stuff that I always want you to come back to. It's really important because as you win and lose in your case, and all the people that definitively win, the people, and I'm just going to say it again because it's like this is questioned. If you want to come on our free calls, you got to be on the email list. We try and do 3 a month. I was even going to do one tonight, but this is going to be a long presentation. But if you want to be on those, you will talk to guys, and it's random, right? A lot of the guys who fought with their blood, sweat, and tears for their case may not want to come on the free call at an odd hour. They'll come on the other 20 to 30 hours a week that we have for the paid groups of people talking about it. But you can come and talk to guys who have won in pro se, gotten appeals pro se, gotten their kids alienated and tortured, ripped from them, and come back to win full custody. Full custody. They're at this point, the only parent in their case, pro se. These people are very regularly in our group. All right. So I think it would be probably an advantageous thing for you to have that. I always love this on TikTok. I just want to show you this, and it's an anonymous user, and of course they're anonymous. You can't really see, but it says, "You claimed you were a judge. Look at his earlier videos. He's wearing a black robe." Man, that's just wrong. That's Judge Anthony, who, to my knowledge, was a judge. I'm not. I don't claim any of that. TikTok, there's a lot of you guys who watch and listen and get a lot of benefit out of it, but there's so many trolls on this stream. It just makes me think, why the hell am I even ever on TikTok? Man, I'm doing good, YouTube. See, nice messages on YouTube, TikTok, and there's great people on TikTok, but there's just like I don't want to say, look, that's just wrong. That's not me. You're confused. If you talk shit on somebody and attack them, it's better if you're right. Because if you're wrong, you just waste everybody's time. So let's get back to this. So we want to look at how men get blindsided by the laws in family court. Huge, huge important thing. Okay. So let's look at the first section of this. Why people think they understand the law. So why do people feel that they understand the law? And this is something that again, so many people get wrong. So they read the statutes, they read different blogs, they study as hard as you can, because when you're going into a high conflict custody case, your family turns against you. Many people are against you. You now can't trust people. You got ripped off by a couple lawyers, which is, these things happen a lot, right? They're normal. You start going down the Reddit rabbit holes. You look at deep dives in whatever case law stuff. Now with ChatGPT, you can look at all of that. You check out what are the best interest factors. You look at your state's checklist, and now you know, and you have a confidence in that if you know these things, you can then argue them. Like if you just present these properly, because if you show your ex's text messages or any of those types of things, like it's going to then make your case for you, and you will get custody. And you start thinking that that's how it works, and you don't really relax because you're panicked, you're filled with adrenaline, you're being harmed in one of the greatest ways. Parental alienation, false allegations is a horrible, horrible thing. But you're going down a rabbit hole of statutes, family laws, a lot of AI help. And these things are good, like you should use them, but you're just more than likely, because I see this all the time, using them wrong, you get a false confidence. And you say to yourself, I know what the judge is going to do. I know what the court's going to do. I did my due diligence. And there wouldn't be any reason why you would think this is wrong, right? Because every other aspect of success in our world, everything that made you successful, everything that makes other people successful, is doing exactly this. You read the manual, she's emotionally reactive, and the manual, which are the laws, and you're very informed, tell you that this is how it's going to work. Okay. And then when you go in and you go into court and you get blindsided and lose and realize this isn't the way it works, you go, the system is screwed, it's corrupt, the judges suck. Now, we covered this over and over again in the previous lessons, but you need to understand that's part of the loser mindset. If you want to continue to lose, you believe in that. Now, if you want to continue to win, you're going to think that. You're going to believe that part of the time, but then you have to come back to go, what can I do more? What can I do more in this situation? That is the hard thing. This is a Kurt Vonnegut cup that my kids gave me for Father's Day. The first time I got to see them again after 5 years. It was one of the coolest things. And I had a guy, I rented a room in my house and he tried to steal it. Not cool. But anyway, so we go into this situation where we're actually doing it wrong. This is what I'm trying to tell you. You're actually studying the laws wrong. In fact, there's a lot that you're doing right, but your assumption that knowing these things and thinking that family court works in that way is wrong. And most likely it will fail for you, and the failure will be tragic. And then we do see the corruption of the courts. We do see how judges are going to be biased, how judges aren't going to care about our case. We are going to see how lawyers will talk to one another and decide something for you because you can't decide for yourself. We're going to see all of that, and we're going to be convinced that there's no other way. And then we move into a losing mindset. This is a failure for us. And I'm telling you is that there's proof. And again, please come on our free calls and interact with us. This isn't what always happens. Okay. So the other thing too about this is that, and we talk about this in the first couple lessons here of the winning and losing mindset, is if we're highly intelligent, highly successful, highly resourceful people, this actually builds a trap for us. And here's why. We have to figure everything out ourselves. We're under stress. We're being betrayed by everybody. So we're kind of forced to be alone. And all of this intelligence, hard work goes into discovering the family court system. We go to family court, judges are against us, lawyers are against us, and then we look at all the stuff online that just empowers us. And we go, man, this is horrible. And we then start to get more use of our intelligence, which is good. It's a good thing, right? Just telling you how it will, like, in all probability, in all mathematical logic, this is what you will think, and it will screw you, okay? Then we go, man, well, I'm going to study law further. I'm going to look at the Constitution, and I'm going to look at, all the different states' rights. I'm going to look at all these things, and this is wrong. So mixed with your emotion, mixed with your emergency, it comes out as those things, right? And my compassion for that, my true compassion in a person who is helping men on this every day, who dedicates his life to it, I'm actually with all that I can heavily urge you to snap out of this and get into a different way of studying the law and interpreting it. Because you may know a lot of examples of men that lose who you read about, who you watch their videos, but I personally know, and sometimes will come to know the families of thousands of men who have lost, which is sounds bad, right? But that's how we figured out how to win because nobody helped men. So I sat there for now 17 years with this, but 20 years of coaching of with a community where we said we'll do whatever it takes. Nobody else has done that, and so in sitting there and watching that, I will strongly just urge you. You need to learn a different way of looking at the court system. Okay, now because it's high conflict, the law is not going to function like a clean and simple rule book. Because it's also high conflict, and remember from the first lessons, it's in a court that is overwhelmed, whereas judge has tons of discretion, wants things to be in order in a certain way, and essentially that order is being broken in your case and probably most other people's cases, then it's going to get interrupted, it's going to get stopped. That judge is then forced into a reaction, or at least maybe not forced, but they might seem to think so. When there's any reaction in court, that takes away from any justice because justice should be weighing the scales and looking at everything and making clear decisions. But it's an overwhelmed system, and we have to learn how to use it in the right ways. So we also look at statutes that might be made that come out of a certain person's case that might conflict with another person's case. And this could be confusing if we don't know how to argue that, right? So, two conflicting laws. So, in parental alienation, you're going to see stuff like this. In false allegations, you're going to see stuff like this. We may have the proof that there's no evidence of harm, and she can still say, I'm scared. And there could be these other things. Those are two conflicting theories. And this is how a lot of protective orders get continued or granted into permanent protective orders. Okay. So because there's still fear there that has to be honored. And so many men get screwed that way and it gets exploited and taken advantage of. When we're going in, going like, I thought all we needed was the proof that this didn't happen. You know, this is what we really need to understand. Okay. There could be evidence that is not admissible in court. We filed it wrong. Things were off. They might mean nothing to our case, but we think it's something because our case is about the betrayal and the lies and all these different things. There are procedural restrictions. In a judge, this is one of the first things I ever learned in any courts. A judge can kick your evidence out. They may not want to see it. It may not even be due to procedural error. Maybe the other side argues it well and gets it kicked out. You have to understand, right? And this is why we need to, when we structure our cases, we're not really there yet in this whole lesson plan, but when we structure our cases, we need to have overwhelming wins. So we talked about this in a lot of the other lessons. Our evidence needs to speak for itself before it's argued. So we're not relying on arguing our evidence. We will if we have to, but the best evidence, the best, is done with just what is submitted. The evidence itself speaks for itself. And that could be hard. You might not be able to find that. And you might need to rely on arguing it. But we want the evidence, if we can find it, right, that's in that way. So we need to know what evidence is going to work best so that we can submit it right and structure our cases in the best way. The other thing, too, is our evidence not only needs to be argued in that way, but it needs to articulate a narrative that moves into the statutes. Okay. So all of these different things need to come into play with all of it. We need to understand it. This is real important. So when I go to court, or when guys in my groups that have fought really hard cases, like the best wins, the people where law enforcement had to be called in another country to come in with guns drawn to forcibly remove a child from the mother who kidnapped them to another country. This happened not just once in our groups, but multiple times. And then the dad had to fly to that other country to be there to meet. And sometimes he flies and they can't find the mom. But when that happens, when those things happen, these men would all tell you who've won those cases, was very hard cases. If you're going through that, I'm very sorry, but most people aren't going through cases that extreme. These are the types of cases that are regular in our group. When they go through that, they're not confident. No dads who win these extreme cases that redefine the laws in their state, in their county, that define parental alienation for the first time, which has happened in our groups, where parental alienation was recognized in that courtroom for the first time. And now it sets precedent to change the laws for other dads walking into that courtroom. The dad who did that pro se by himself, he would never be confident about the laws. I would never be confident about the laws. There's too many things that could go wrong. It's too easy to get blindsided. And you need to learn the laws, but you need to also understand procedure and your judge. And the previous lessons into this is a whole module is about the judges and how to talk to them and how to analyze them. It's a huge thing. You need to learn it. And you also need to learn the process. And so what we're going to talk about here more is the study of the laws and relevance to understanding the judge, the process, how those laws are applied. I get that it's long. If anybody has an easy, quick video on any of this, man, and it works, wow, please show me. Man, I want to learn. But everything I know about family law with these things and the laws is very complicated. It's not easy. This happens all the time with pro se guys. They come on and they challenge us with awareness of constitutional law or whatever. And most of those guys who have that mentality don't win back the custody of their kids. And we have an overwhelming, at this point, an overwhelming amount of men who started out in the worst cases. Every time we get new clients, I forget how many new clients we got in October, but 20 or so, and we'll follow them. But like the guys that came in April and March, they're already winning, and they had their kids taken away from them. They were robbed from custody, false abuse allegations. Multiple of them that came into our groups in April and in May started out with criminal allegations. That means they were under investigation by the police. They were arrested by the police. A criminal case started, and then they had to beat that, and then they had to enter into their family law case. These are men who already have access to their kids. It's hard. I don't want to say it's easy. It definitely didn't come through a loophole with the law. It came through a whole bunch, the combination of those three things: judge, process, laws. All right. So the correct way to learn family law, in the best way, if you're starting out and you're just a dad and you want help that's low cost so that you could really learn it, because you're a dad, or if you're a mom watching this, a dad or a mom who says, I will do anything for my kids, anything. And you mean it. And I believe you mean it. I'm going to tell you what is the highest likelihood for you to get that wish, to have all of your blood, sweat, and tears go in a good way with starting out with learning family law. Number one, you watch your judge. If you can't watch your judge, you watch other judges. Okay. In these videos, I'll try and put links to like Dallas's courtroom. If you watch any judge, that's going to be better than no watching of family court. Okay. But if you can watch your judge, that's best. Talk about this all the time, so we'll skip it. Very important though. Study your laws. So you study your laws, you study what they mean, you study all the different variables that are relevant to your case. You look at whatever you can, and then you go back and you watch family court. That right there, it's so simple and it's free. Like, you don't have to pay for it. It's so simple, but I'm just going to say this. You would rather watch me on YouTube or TikTok or some of the other great people talking about this sort of stuff. You could watch Judge Anthony, who somebody on TikTok was talking trash on. Like, his information is good. There's guys in my group who've hired him and they say good things. This is good. There needs to be more people doing this, right? You'd rather watch us than go in and watch family court and study the law. You watch family court, you study the law. If you watch family court and study the law, and you do these things over and over again, okay, If you go back and forth with it, you are going to learn a ton. And of course, I love it that you watch my stuff. I hope it helps you in the biggest ways. Like that's the point of it. But this is really, really important. Okay. Now, if you can't watch your judge, you watch any judge. And this is going to help you in big ways. Now, here's the next thing that you're going to do. You don't just watch it, study your judge, learn the laws, go back and forth between these things, but then you start to look at your case. And if you really want to get good at this, you break down what are all the issues in your case and you start hunting for different courtrooms that might have that. So the guy that won pro se, and for the first time, if you guys understand family law, we hear a lot about parental alienation. If you say parental alienation in a courtroom, it doesn't work. Here's the reason why it doesn't work. It's not the DSM-5. There's no way for the judge to diagnose it, and there's no argument for it. So whenever it sets precedent, meaning the first time it's ever there, the first time it ever enters into a courtroom, then you are paving the way for tons of people. Well, that hasn't happened, right? One of the guys in our groups did that for his courtroom. So that's great for all the dads after it. But one of the things with that is you have to start understanding how different laws get argued in the courts. So let's say you're going through something and let's say it's parental alienation. Let's say it's some sort of allegations. Let's say it's a financial thing and you're trying to argue it. You want to see other examples from other courts of how that is being argued. Okay. Super, super important to do. And then what you should also start doing is watching family court cases, and you watch them in other states and counties or whatever. And you start going, well, wait a minute. This person has this going on, and I think they're innocent. So this dad is getting screwed over in this way, or this dad's screwing over the mom in this way, whatever it is. And I think this is happening. How could have they done it better? And this will start getting you to understand a well-roundedness to the laws. This is an interesting thing because what my friend who won his case, he started out with lawyers and went pro se, and he would watch family courts, and he would do this and watch a diversity of it. One thing that was important to that was that he got a well-rounded view. So oftentimes when we're getting advice from people on YouTube, we're getting advice from somebody who won in one way. Well, that's not going to work for us. And then this is one of the things I really want to check you guys with. Like, just keep this in mind. If you ever talk to me, if you come on my free calls and you demand, you say, well, tell me in Utah who's won pro se in this way with these, like, you're not going to get an answer, right? And I get why you're thinking that way because that's your situation. But the guys that actually win in both directions. A well-rounded view of the law, because the only way you're going to get how to argue complex things is to get a well-rounded view, things that aren't necessarily relevant in your case, how judges think and decide, and how laws get, argued essentially. And then you're going to see pathways to how a person won in exactly the same way as you, which I'm going to tell you statistically, it's a very true thing. There was a guy on last night who didn't get to talk, who was on the free call, who had a criminal false allegation case, alienated for 2 years, won his kids back. And because somebody was talking too much about their case, they wouldn't let him talk and they couldn't hear how valuable his advice was. But one of the ways where he won his case, the guy is in another country from the other guys who also won, who have completely different laws. And the reason why all of them won, all of them multiple year parental alienation, multiple false allegations, criminal allegations, completely like railroaded as sex offenders and all these horrible things, right? All of them won full custody, not because they won their case in the same way, even though they had similar cases, but in different courts. They could have had a similar trajectory of winning, but they won it because they had to be creative. That's why they won it, because you go to court, you get screwed, and you have to learn how to, what can I do better? How can I move this? How would we do the affidavits? How would we do whatever with the situation that we're in? This is so important. And then what's interesting is Again, the 140 IQ guys, I brought this up, I think, in last night's thing, but on our previous call where I was talking about it, the guys who are really intelligent, which is great that you're intelligent, but the guys that are really intelligent, they argue down a rabbit hole that makes a lot of sense and it's hyper logical and it should make sense, but they get trapped in that. They can't get out of it and they can't improvise. Okay, and so then they give arguments about why the family court sucks that are super intelligent that makes a lot of sense. That convinces people that it's impossible to win. So they're actually doing a huge disservice to men and women out there with misinformation because you can win. It's really hard. It's really hard. So when we go back to this guy that would watch family court all the time, one of those things is that it was important to watch a diversity of things and listen to a diversity of people. And then don't get too arrogant so that on a free call, there are people that have what you wished you could have had, but you were too busy talking about how you knew the specific statutes in this state. Man, just again, statistically, probability wise, from what I see, those guys lose a lot. And we all start there, right? It's natural, but we have to get out of it. Okay. So we want to look at the laws and understand them and understand that a judge is going to want to look at these things. So a judge is going to care about stability. They're going to care about less conflict. A judge is going to care about your temperament. A judge is going to care about the structure in their courtroom, how their courtroom works. They're going to care about the evidence format. And hopefully that evidence doesn't need as much explanation. So all explanation, all arguments for evidence should be really, really tight. Okay, the evidence should speak for itself. Okay, they're going to care about different patterns and patterns that are easy to see, right? They're going to care about the child's development. So all those things are there, but remember, if we look at the previous lesson in this or the series of lessons, it's a lot of them, the judge is the boss. They're the referee. The laws are the boundaries. So all the laws need to then move into this process of stability, credibility. It needs to have organization. It needs to articulate a message that's consistent in their courtroom, and it needs to be formatted in the right way. The evidence doesn't need to have a complicated explanation. It should be as quick as possible. I get it. Sometimes it can't be. And you're trying to show patterns that the court is used to seeing. This is what your law needs to be put into. So when we're talking about different laws and statutes, it has to fit that. Now, one of the things that everybody talks about in these pieces of content that I do, whether they're short or long, they say, well, tell me the laws. The thing is in your state and county, they're so unique. And I can tell you stories about other people with these certain situations and what they did. To be honest, a lot of it is simple in terms of the just things that won. Now, what makes it complicated are all the things that got in the way, the delays, the arguments, and those types of things. But we're taught to think that a unique and really specific look at the law is what's going to make us win. And that could, but that's like the 1 out of 100 things. And there's 100 other things that you overlook. They're not really available to see that have to do with the process, the judge, the way you act in court, the other factors that are going to make your case move along. If you want to know the laws, but not understand the order of how things are talked about in the court, and you know the laws better than everybody, you will fail. Like, think about that. If you know the laws, but you don't understand when your place is to talk in the courtroom and you interrupt, you're very likely to lose. You're very likely to get continued. You're very likely to get brushed off. Think about that. Think about that. And if you don't want that to happen in your case, you can go in and watch family court and watch it happen in other people's cases so that you can learn that. All right. But instead, a lot of people watch family court and then they go online and they say, man, it's unfair. See, I proved it. Now you can watch that and you can prevent that. And you're also going to see people succeed and talk at the right times. Okay. So you need to understand the judge courtroom process and then the law. And it's okay if you study the law first, but you need to know in the order of things, the judge is the most important thing because they interpret your law. And I guarantee you, without any experience, or actually, even if you have experience, because I know this, that that if you are in a family court battle with somebody else who's a lawyer, their intelligence is going to screw them over. It's going to mess them up. Okay, even if they're a family law lawyer, they're usually too emotionally attached. They can't detach. Okay, so they will know the law better than you. They may even know the judge. But if you can back up and learn how to control your emotions and understand how this judge works, that person is going to be more likely to take chances and risks, and they're going to be more willing to lie. They probably already are lying. It's really hard not to lie. That's a big thing. Somebody writes in here, this is a good comment. So basically, you just know the boundaries, but not giving them authority, but not giving authority to the boss. So I could be reading it wrong, but what you want to do is, yes, you need to understand the boundaries, and you need to understand that the judge is the boss. The judge is the boss, straight up. There's no other boss in there. And if you want to argue that, probability wise, heavy probability wise, you are just setting yourself up for more losses, more money, more delays, more time away from your kids. So, want to understand that it's very important to work within that. The laws are very important, but the judge, who has huge discretion because they're overwhelmed, have a ton of people in front of them, they have to make decisions on the fly. Their court has a lot of lying, a lot of deception, so much that it would be impossible to charge all these people. They got to move it through, right? That's a horrible thing. I'm not in all saying that's good. This is horrible. Like, we got to change it. I'm with you. But again, in doing this for 20 years, there's one Robert Garza. There's one guy who's changed laws. There's a bunch of guys I know who've changed the laws in their courtroom by winning their case. And that's a good route to start. But bottom line is first win the custody of your kids and then worry about changing the laws. Huge, huge thing. So, how custody laws actually function. Let's look at this part here. Most dads think the law works is that the statute is going to protect me, the judge is going to follow it, and the outcome is obvious. How many of you guys have thought that? How many of you guys have gone in and lost in family court, or maybe you're studying for something now, and you go, the statute's there. Here's what it says. Here's all the checklist for the best interests of the child. Steve, let me inform you, the state of Nebraska has this, and this is what it is, and I know it. Okay, I hear this all the time. And the judge has to follow it because they're a judge. They have to listen to me. Okay. And the outcome's there. I'm good. I'm done. Right. This is a mentality that will set you up to lose. Okay. And again, in every other aspect of your life, this is rewarded. This is good. But I'm just telling you now, it's not going to be the thing that's good. So your judge takes the law, looks at the evidence, filters through the credibility, filters it through the process, and applies what they think matters on the fly. Two parents can have identical facts, totally different outcomes, simply because they're standing in front of different judges. Simply because, let's say they're standing in front of the same judge, simply because it's a different day. Simply because one's going in at the beginning of the day when the judge is fresh, and one's going in at the end of the day. And so these are really important things to understand. This week, oh man, I'm going at the end of the day, I'm screwed. Not necessarily, oh man, my judge hates men, I'm screwed. Not necessarily. There's so many angles to beat this. And again, they're not easy. Like, if I break one down for you, we were just talking about it on the call, right? So somebody in a very, very, actually I talked about this last night, but in a very, very blue state, okay, very liberal judges, oftentimes men have difficulties. And in this state, men have extreme difficulties. It's really bad. When it comes to false DV claims, like, it's really tough. Canada too. Canada, horrible with DV and false abuse accusations. Taken way too seriously instantly, and direct measures happen. It's horrible. Okay. Now, one of our guys is kicking ass and winning. And here's one of the things, because when there's prejudice, especially with judges, you always want to have examples of the token, in this case, dad, who did it right. And so you want to be that guy, the dad that follows the rules, the dad that basically says they do care about men. She's going to award custody to him. And that is what has happened. He's just trying to get full, well, there's other, he shouldn't talk about his case too much, but he wants to be able to move with the child to a different state. That's really what he's arguing about now. Full custody. Mom is a weekend mom. Dad, in an extremely blue state, started off with kidnapping, false allegations. The kidnappings had nothing to do with the custody decision because it happened in another state. This kicked all this stuff off, and a dad won full custody. Part of that is because he switched it. With every form of prejudice, there's another form to try and counter it. And if you can be that guy, it's there. That may not work for you, right? But that's one of the ways it can. But again, when we look at an impossible system with no options, that can't ever be a truth. We always want to empower that it's going to fail for us. So it happens. And actually, he was on the free call last night, and his one things pro say, this is a bummer. And my heart goes out to the guy, and I hope he gets help, and I hope he gets the help he needs. But there's somebody who was on the free call that I felt he was just like this guy could have given him. This guy was giving him good information that actually wins. But the other pro se dad wanted to talk about how he was knowledgeable about things, and I get it because he hasn't been able to talk to anybody. But man, like it's pretty rare when you come to our group that's going to say, "Hey, we'll talk to you guys to the public," and you just. It's like, dude, you want to win your case or not? Listen, please listen. Okay, so let's go back to this really quick. A judge is going to filter all of your evidence, all of your truth, all of those laws through a process which has an order. It's going to be filtered through your etiquette. It's going to be filtered through the narrative of the evidence and how their court works. There's many things, right? And there's variables that come into it. So if we're ever going to know the laws, we need to know how the law is argued. If we just learn the law and we don't learn how it's argued in different courtrooms, we're going to fail at it. And again, another trap that we get into is we just want to learn laws that are relevant only to our case. And that makes a lot of sense. We should be spending most of our time on that. Let's say 70% of the time on stuff on our case, or 100% if we're really preparing for trial. But in the down times, right, in those 3-month, 6-month gaps, we should watch other cases. 30% of the time we study other people's stuff. And the beauty of that is we see the creativity that allows people to win. This is really, really important. Okay. Now, in that, look on Reddit. Look at stuff on ChatGPT. Look at stuff in Claude. Look at stuff in all of AI. Look at the statute books. I actually just watched something from a lawyer that basically was talking about how ChatGPT is going to screw you. Look, if you're not using AI to help you out, you're disadvantaging yourself. But if you think it's not going to make mistakes, if you think that it's always going to tell you the truth, if you think that it's not going to give you false confidence, you're wrong, right? So you got to learn how to properly use it. So the judge is the battlefield. The laws are the weapons. The laws are the boundaries. The laws are the rules. Okay? Very important to understand. Now, let's talk about this. Men walk in to high conflict custody saying the law's on my side, the truth is on my side. I'm being accused of false accusations. I'm being accused of domestic violence. I'm being accused of having money that I don't have, but the truth is on my side. I'm morally sound. I believe in God or whatever it is. I believe in logic. I'm a rational person. And the courts are going to understand this. This is one of the closest mentalities to 100% probability of losing. If you have this and this makes you not work, I can almost guarantee you're going to lose. Now, you can have all of those things, but there needs to be changes to it. I believe the law is on my side. So guess what? I'm going to learn the law and I'm going to learn how it's applied in all the ways that hopefully I listed off with studying the judge, studying the process, studying how laws are argued, how they're countered. And I'm never going to be confident about it. I am not confident about it. The guys that changed the laws in their state with their pro se wins from being alienated from their kids for years are not confident about it. Okay. And the multiple dads in our group, who are on our calls every day, are not confident about it. Don't be confident about it. That doesn't mean that you're always afraid or in terror. That means that you can never study enough. Okay. If you care about morality or your spiritual views, that's awesome. And they're going to help you out in a lot of ways. It's actually going to help shape you after all of this. They're very important. But legally, what you have to look at is the most moral thing, the most righteous thing, the most in service to the things that matter, your kids, your family, your commitments to your higher power. Any of those things are going to be to learn how to argue in the court properly, because that's going to get the direct result. Court cuts all of that out. Okay. It cuts all of it out because that can be confusing, keeps away from factual facts and all that sort of stuff. And you want to learn how to have that argument in the best way. Okay. So, very, very important. So, because right law is something that is not what wins, we have to learn what wins. So, the law is how we're interpreting it. The law is how we're reading it. If we just go and state that and give facts that we think are important, like the evidence that we have that we think is important, and we put that forth, it's not going to win. So what wins? What makes it win? Is lying? Is deception? All the lawyers know each other. It's corrupt and the judges hate you and whoever pays them the most, that's who wins. It's also not true. Could be true, right? Could be some of the time. But let's talk about how we would minimize that. Okay, and again, coming from the group that starts out in the highest of conflicts, with true corruption happening, true bias, true horrible, horrible things happening, right? And we still have wins. Okay, here's what wins. We have to have a baseline of correct filing. We have to have a baseline of a correct process. All of our evidence needs to be filed. It needs to be verified. It needs to make a point. It needs to be turned in early, exactly how the court wants it. There needs to be credibility to every single thing, every single part of it. Okay. There needs to be a structure that hopefully is based on what that judge wants. It needs to be in alignment with the judge, and everything needs to be admissible. That's the baseline. Okay. So if you want law to hear your evidence, if you want your evidence to be argued in legalese, you start there. So here's what's wrong with all the comments that come on my videos. I had all the evidence and the judge screwed me over. Okay, most of you I've not interacted with, but whenever I interact with you and talk to you personally and you give me your file, you show me the evidence, it's not filed in exhibits, it's not properly documented, you showed up to court the day of court with it without ever giving it to the other side, you didn't do discovery, all these different things, right? And this is super, super important to understand. Somebody writes in a comment, so it's important to study the judge's patterns with your county, state, along with family law. Massively. Yesterday's 2-hour live stream, and it's probably in the 20 hours of videos that are published on YouTube that I published in October, just 20 hours in just October, 15 in November, all surely talk about that exact thing. Like, I don't know how much I need to talk about it. I talk about it in short videos, long videos. Like, it's there, right? It's in PDFs, it's in the lessons. Maybe I do them wrong, but again, there's not enough people doing these things. Somebody who's much better than me should definitely do them. So these things are all really important. We need the baseline of what's going to win. Okay. So correct structure is going to beat the law by itself. Think about that. So, correct structure in the courtroom can beat the law. Now, it shouldn't. I agree that this is wrong, but I'm just telling you what are some of the obvious, like if you go to family court, like, so one of the things here is it's not just that you look at your judge's pattern, you watch family court, you watch it. You can watch Harris County, you can watch Dallas County, you can watch King County family court, you can watch so many different counties across the United States on Zoom from the comfort of your home. It's boring, it's pretty nauseating, but it's going to save you thousands. Like if you want to save $10,000 for free, watch 15 hours of family court. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good per hour savings. And it's probably going to save you much more than that. Okay. So that's really important to understand. All right. So, why is it that structure can beat the law? How is this possible? Well, let's think about this. Let's say I'm innocent. I'm being accused of beating my kids, which is what happened to me. If you don't know my story, this is true. Went to jail, all sort of stuff, was admitted to be a mistake 8 years later after serving all the time and punishment and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Which is why I do the job I do. So, in this whole time, okay, I thought all of these things like, okay, I'm just going to tell the truth. The judge is going to care. This is going to be obvious. This person lies over and over again. They're proven to lie in court for other things. Why did it stick? So at first, I'm very pissed off and angry, and the court sucks, all this sort of stuff. And then I thought, okay, well, what could I learn from attorneys? What could I learn from being in court? What could I learn from other things? And what I learned was over and over again, you see this. So in my case, I see it in one way. But in other ways, real estate issues, property disputes, all these different things that came up in family law, was somebody was right. Like they had the laws for how property is divided in the state of Texas. They had that argument. But the court was disrupted. Somebody spoke out of turn. An argument broke out. And the judge stopped the case because it was only a hearing. It wasn't a trial, right? And even in a trial, you jeopardize your entire argument when you break the court structure. So if somebody is holding on to the structure and the other person is holding on to the law but doesn't care about the structure, the person with the structure is going to win some of those battles just by probability alone. Because the person that doesn't care about the court structure is going to break from it, they're going to speak out of turn, and they're going to make it impossible for their case to be argued. As much as that sucks, what you should know, what you should just know as a human being, if you get angry with somebody, it changes the dynamic. And you can get angry at the Starbucks employee. You could go buy an Apple product and yell at the staff, and their customer service tells you tells them to be nice, and they'll be nice to you. I say this over and over again in multiple lessons. Again, I wish I could make free products for you better, but I do the best I can. But in the 20 hours that we put up in October, the 15 hours that we put up in November, and whatever it'll be in December, I just want to tell you that if you make your lawyer mad, even if they're a bad person, your relationship with that lawyer goes downhill. You need to learn to be diplomatic. If a judge is hateful, evil, deceptive, and the worst person to you, and you confront them, you have no power. You confront them in the wrong way. You need to learn the right way to do it. We actually talked about that in yesterday's video, which was 2 hours. And again, as I tell people, you can watch them on double speed. You can go in, and YouTube makes it easy now, but I actually tell you there's a better way to do it. But if you go to the show notes, after a day or so of a live stream is published, you can click on the show transcript. YouTube then has something in the corner which says, just copy the whole transcript. You can copy that and put it into AI and isolate the different topics that might be relevant to what you want to do. If you learn how to use custom GPTs or projects, you can actually put all of them in there. And you can say, tell me what Steve would say in this. Not that that would be, maybe that might not be the best thing, but you can do all of that. I think it's better to download a transcript with the times on it. So if you just do the copy thing, it doesn't do that, but the times help you organize it better. Okay. So let's actually look at what we're going to talk about in this next lesson. So this is going to be a long live stream. This one where we're jamming a lot in here. I know that it's harder to follow and all that sort of stuff. And TikTok, we're probably going to run out of batteries on the phone with this. So we want to actually talk about 3 must know pillars of family law. Last lesson was the judge. It's an elaborate one. There's many things in that. This one are what we just talked about were the laws and statutes and how we need to study them. Okay. And you need to study them, but you need to study them in the right way. It's always how they're applied to your case, always how they're argued. But where this is really going to take off is what we're going to talk about next. What we're going to talk about next is one of the most complicated things in this all. But if you can get this, if you can get this, it is going to save you a ton of money. It alone, I fear saying this because I don't want you to misinterpret this. This alone can win your case. Right? Remember how structure and all that other sort of stuff could beat the laws alone? If you can get this last pillar right, you're going to do a lot. And this is going to be the process of high conflict custody in the order of things, the evidence, what evidence matters, how it's filed, what gets ignored, what gets dismissed, what's the order of people speaking, why is it important for somebody to file first, and so on, and all these different things. And so that's what is coming up here in this second portion of this very long live stream. But this is going to be the good stuff. And it's kind of a bummer because I'm just thinking of like the YouTube algorithm in this. And man, it would be better to do this in a video alone. But we're just going to go for it. So watch it on double speed, all of that sort of stuff. Get to this. And don't forget to join my free communities because they're going to help you, man. Just be nice. It's hard. Like you got to realize every day, all day, I'm talking to men in the hardest moments of their life that our culture did not prepare them for. And they've been misinformed by many other people helping out with law, people helping out with masculinity. So it's tough. That's a tough thing to wake up to. I'm going to tell you, I love it. I love my job and I love working with men in this, but I'm dealing with people like I get suicide notes probably once a month from guys. There's a guy, well, I'll share this. There's a guy who just wrote me and he's going to prison. And another common one. I get a lot of hard stuff. And so when we're trying to help you out with these things, be polite. And I really wish there were other men helping men out with this. So that's kind of a bummer that it's not happening. So let's get into this part. Process and evidence. Process and evidence are going to be some of the fundamentally most important things in your case. If your case is won, the process and the evidence telling the narrative of the law that is presented to a judge is what's going to be a part of your win. Hands down. Now, in all 3 of these components, as we're studying them, and they're a little bit of the elongated lessons, we have the judge. I think that's the most important to start with. You got to start there. Then there's the laws. And remember, we want to study the law, watch family court. Study the law, watch your judge. If you can't watch your judge, you watch 5 other different judges. So you get an overall idea of how family court judges work and the different archetypes that they may fall under. Why? So when you go into court and you're forced to react and think on your feet, you're not coming from ignorance, you're coming from real life experience of observing family court. We're not observing family court to empower a victim mentality. We're observing family court so that we can win. And I just want to tell you, you can win. You can lose 100 different ways every day, but you can win. If you're a parent that will do anything for your kids. You need to start thinking of that now. And I would follow my entrepreneur buddy, Billy Murphy, forever jobless, amazing guy. I would follow Billy Murphy's advice. And he says, pick one person to listen to and don't listen to anybody else. Now, if that's me, cool. If it's somebody else, listen to them because you don't want to confuse yourself. Okay, guys. So let's jump into this. Process and evidence are super important. Okay. Men don't lose in family court because they're wrong. Men lose because they violate the process without knowing it. If you've lost in family court, if you're watching this and you have a tragedy and you're saying everything sucks because it sucks, I want you to go back and think about your case. I want you to study family court and I want you to look at the process. That means how you filed stuff, who you talked to, your relationship with the county clerk, your relationship with the judge, your relationship with the lawyers. How many lawyers have you gone through? Your lawyers who lied to you and were deceitful, were you ever somebody that miscommunicated with them? Did you give the judge a reason who may be officially corrupt, the worst person in the world? Did you give them a reason to dislike you? And the main thing in that is, did you conflict with this process? So this process is long. This process is part black and white things. But the process is also going to be how you're talking to people. So it's interpersonal. It's part influential and it's part factual. But it starts off in fact. You know, one of the things, like, judges and lawyers don't like getting advice from anybody. That's why you have to be diplomatic in talking to them. They're not going to enjoy you having that attitude. Okay. But you need to learn how to properly bring up disputes with them. This is an art. And again, there's a lot to this. And in the a lot to this, one of the big problems is that in our communities, we only know how to solve this in real time. So I could tell you this all day long. Okay. You can watch multiple videos. This is why I say go back and watch the initial lessons of this, of the mentalities of winners and losers. Okay. Super important because it's going to just keep coming up with what you got to do to reset yourself. Because you can lose every day in 100 ways. You can also win. Low probability. Why? Because nobody's disciplined. Everybody's misinformed. And we're all emotionally insane. And yes, the system is also corrupt. So if you're going to win, you have to be really, really tight on your game. Okay, really tight. So in all of this, I just want to say, if you're not on the free high conflict custody list, you go on the profile on TikTok and you can get on that. There's free calls we do. We do 3 a month. Last night we went on for hours. Last night there was a 5-hour call. You know, tonight we're doing a 2-hour live stream and we did 4 hours of calls from my paid groups before this. But if you want to be on those where there are men who win in situations that you're in, probably harder. Okay, this happens all the time. A guy signs up and he says, "You're not going to believe my case. I have the hardest case." And probably to his friends and family, he does have the hardest case. But you have to realize, I only deal with hard cases. Before I started this live stream, a client of mine, for something separate from his custody battle, is starting his prison sentence today. I only deal with hard stuff. It came out of his custody battle, but it's a separate thing anyway. Long story. This is what I deal with every day. I hope your case is not the hardest or worst I've ever heard. I hope. I understand that for you and your whole reality it is. But I hope that you haven't had your child kidnapped and taken to another country and sold into slavery. I hope you're not the worst. Okay. And you're a dad trying to fight back for that. Okay. So I hope that hasn't happened. But if it is, we'll help you out. But that being said, get on my free community. We're there to help you. If you need extra help, look at the paid communities. They only help. Like a guy said last night, where's the group of dads that wins? I've been telling you guys, every day we have dads that have some of the hardest, worst cases who have won, who are on our calls, helping other dads out. We have attorneys who are not only on our group, but started out in our group because they hired us to help win their case. They're on our calls. We have legal assistants. We have therapists. Part of our 4 hours of calls today were 2 hours with a therapist two therapists actually, who specialize in male trauma and custody battles. That's what you get in the paid groups. Okay, they're paid for a reason. The free groups, well, you just get me. All right. So, what process actually means? What does it mean? So, what does this mean? Part of it is facts. Part of it is going to be some sort of presentation or something that I can influence. Is it filing some paperwork? So, what the process means is this whole thing, this whole schedule of the court is all following a certain set of steps. It's different for every state and county. So, again, everybody says, well, tell me the specific laws, tell me the specific process. There have to be generalities. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Your case has specifics. So, every case that we work with, hands on with guys all the time, every day, it's unique. There's a lot of crossover and similarities, but it's going to have these things, right? And whenever we state abstractions, people get confused. I understand that. So try and be clear. Filing things correctly. What evidence do you have? What needs to be filed? What needs to be filed before it? Does discovery need to go in before? Would it be more advantageous if we did affidavits? What does that mean? How do interrogatories play into it? What are all these things? What is the process of each of those things? Now, because we're going to hear this over and over again, but because part of structuring a case means we need to be thinking long term. So I understand you want your family court high conflict custody battle to be done in 3 months. But on average, 2 years, 3 years, maybe it'll be 18 months. Okay. And I hope yours isn't. But we always want to plan that it's going to be that long. So, how I file, how I request discovery, how is this going to affect a 3-year case? If I know this is the situation, if lying is happening now, how is that going to be more exposed or advantageous to me? Is it even going to matter? Lying may not matter. If I get sworn statements, how can I get that to be the most advantageous to a long-term case? Always. That's part of the process. We also have to think of like, okay, serving. How do we petition? Is it important for us to petition first, or do we start first? The answer is yes. Why? Because everything goes first. So imagine if somebody else goes first and they have false allegations, and false allegations get turned into a protective order, and then you spend the whole time arguing that, you're going to spend maybe 18 months just saying that you're not dangerous to your kids while they can't see you. And then because it took 18 months or maybe only 6 months, maybe only 3 months, the judge goes, you know what? Because in the last 90 days you haven't seen your child, we're going to order reunification therapy. And we're going to start off with supervised visitations. But judge, it was proven there was no abuse. Yeah, but now your kids, there's proven psychological evidence to them, right? But this is the process. What's the judge's process? What's your judge's process? And this is really common in a lot of the US. 90 days, 6 months away from a child, they might want to introduce back the alienated parent. You need to understand that. You need to understand that the process probably affected that, which is crazy huge, right? Okay. So, what about notifications? What about asking for hearings correctly? What about motions? How do all these things have to happen? Well, they're a part of the process. What happens if we miss a deadline? What happens if we have a failure to appear? What happens if there's a default judgment? These are all parts of the process that we need to understand. And if we don't understand them, it's really easy to fail at it. So all these things are important, complicated pieces. They're more complicated than law. This is actually, another tangent. Sorry, guys. But we have so many dads that hyper focus on the law, that hyper focus on constitutional law, which doesn't even matter about family court, is going to waste time with your family court case. It's important. You should do it, but win your family court case first and then focus on that. Or focus on it in a way where you're not taking away time from your family court case. So when you are focusing on the laws, it's always that I'm focusing on the laws and I'm looking for every little detail. Kind of important. You know what's really important that I never hear pro se dads talk about? And every pro se dad of mine that are in my groups that won cases that redefine the laws in their state and county, where we have multiple men who have done that. You know what they'll say? Yeah, you got to study the law, but the process is much more important. All of them, because they've been through it. You should be studying exactly all of these things: filing correctly, serving correctly, asking for hearings correctly, proper notice, deadlines, discovery, responses, rebuttals, court rules, county rules, judge specific preferences, how exhibits must be submitted, how evidence must be formatted. All of that. Then in the order that the judge wants it. So to articulate this, if we have evidence, how does your judge care about it? So remember, the judge, super important, super important. The laws are the boundaries of it. This process is playing the game. This is the real time stuff. So you could have a referee, the judge, you could have all the rules to understand how to be the best cage fighter, whatever, and Big John McCarthy's in there or whatever, all this sort of stuff. Or maybe it's basketball, maybe it's football. You understand all the rules. Playing the game is the process. Why was a flag thrown? Why is it offsides? Why is it pass interference? Why was it an eye poke? Why is this move illegal? Why is there a downward strike from an elbow to the head? Why are these things happening? What is reaping in IBJJF, which I wish they would allow? You know, what are those things? Why are these things illegal? They are the process. This is your game. This is the skill that you need to get good at. Yeah, cross-examination is important, totally. Skill, practice it. Yes, being able to tell your story and present, super important. But if you do any of those things out of turn, you're screwed, man. You're screwed. You're gonna mess up. Okay? Now, most people know less than 5% of anything about the process, and they know 90% of the laws, and they know nothing about their judge. And they think that they're going to get something fair. This is how you lose. Okay, process is stronger than facts, it's stronger than truth, it's stronger than the law, which then everybody then argues with me because, again, pro se guys or people that are really into the Constitution want to talk about how smart they are. They're all going to say, but then you're saying that people should walk all over our rights. No, not at all. I want your rights to be respected. I think they're really important. But I know and have walked with more dads than probably anybody that you will ever know in your life to victory in only high conflict custody. And they will all tell you after their lives are torn apart and they fought for the custody that you want to get, that the process is the most important thing in all of this that is missing. Now, I will tell you, I think the judge is the most important thing to start with. But if you have a good judge, bad judge, whatever, what's going to correct that is going to be the process. So if your judge is biased and you want to win your judge over, start by learning the process, learning what they like, the order in they like it, and how things are done right. Okay, if something is filed wrong, it doesn't exist. Guys who message on my TikTok who say, I had all the evidence, but the judge is biased, F the system, let's go, wear a men's rights t-shirt and complain about not being a dad. And I get it. I've been there. I understand. But if you filed it wrong, it doesn't exist. And I bet you that is most 9 out of 10 guys reasons why their evidence wasn't heard. They did not file it properly. They didn't share it with opposing counsel. It was introduced to court wrong way. It was making the wrong argument. Okay? If something is late, It's ignored. Turn in a day late. It's Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. and you're turning it in now, right? You have court Monday morning. That wasn't what they requested. Or you're waiting till the last minute. That wasn't what they requested. You probably don't know this because you didn't watch Family Court, but Family Court does not care about why you got stuck in traffic, about why you had extra work this week and you couldn't turn in your financials or whatever it is. And sometimes it can be sympathetic, but you have to know that. Like it can definitely be sympathetic about certain things, which actually doesn't do you any favors if you're going to be late on other things. Okay. So you need to understand that. If somebody wasn't served properly, it could get thrown out. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to have tons of dads saying, I didn't get served this, so I don't need to show up to court. So it doesn't follow due process. And again, they read the law. They understand. Okay, where are the examples of that working in family court? Because it doesn't always work that way. Study it. This is your life. If you think this is ruining your life now, it will ruin it more. Truly ruin your life. As a father with your kids, if you think that you have read some statutes and that you understand due process, but you have not checked how it works in your courtroom, you are going to make a mistake and you're going to screw yourself. You are going to, like, it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen the first time, if it doesn't happen the second time, by 3, it will screw up. You need to understand that all this stuff has a process and a procedure. If this violates procedure, meaning you got evidence in the wrong way, or it violates how the court processes different things, it doesn't exist. It's gone. And when you can't understand why that happened because you have all the arguments that you spend all the time going over with your friends, your yes men, all the people on the internet that you're talking to who are basically saying you have it airtight and they patted you on the back and then ChatGPT ran through all of it and it was the number one thing and then you go into court and you lose. Why? It's because you didn't have family court defining how your case is argued. You had your friends, you had AI, you had whatever stupid crap, and you need to have that. I still don't understand. I still don't understand this. Like, my group is awesome because it has all these people and we'll talk to you for free. My group is so valuable, but why aren't there other men doing this? There's a lot of men complaining. There's a lot of men saying that they're going to dedicate their life to men's rights and changing the laws. In my group, not me, my group, my guys who I stood next to, and they put in their hell. And some of them lost. They have changed the laws in states and counties for future men more than the whole movement of whatever. Them and Robert Garza. But every man swears by it. Every man's got a petition. Man, look, I'm just saying, you need to understand the definition of this is the family courts. It's this crazy, elusive process that you're going, well, just tell me. I'm telling you, you have to study it. You have to watch it. It's your life. It's your case. I'll help you. We have free groups that help you. We have free content that will help you. And there's paid groups that will help you. And we have a ton of wins. And fundamentally, it's yours to learn, whether you hire a lawyer or not. If you hire the best lawyer and you give them $60,000, it is yours to learn. That's how you win. That is hard. Want to know something else? If you think you can do it alone, you'll probably lose. And if you think because you're the most badass person or whatever, you will lose. How do you join? You go to my TikTok profile, you click it, and you get on the free high conflict custody portal. You get a bunch of free stuff, constant content, which is relevant based off of guys that win that talk every single day. And then Tuesday nights at 9:30, 3 times a month, not every time, we do a live stream where you're invited on to come and talk to us. Okay? Be polite. Don't be rude. Check yourself. I get you've never told your story to anybody or nobody wants to listen to it, but let's focus on winning your case. And in this, we're focusing on the process. So why do people lose? Why do people lose? Is it because they didn't properly study the laws? Is it because they weren't right? Is it because they didn't fight for God in the right way? Those things are all awesome. And I think it would probably be good if you tied them into what actually does work. Studying the laws is pretty important. Having a belief system or support system that backs you is pretty important. But if you didn't know how to file right, if you didn't know how to properly argue, if you didn't know courtroom etiquette, if you didn't know the timing of the court, if you didn't know the exact way that the judge wants evidence, how exhibits are laid forward, if you didn't know how to argue a lie when it's presented in court and you interrupt, you're not following the process and you will lose. And so many people lose in an already biased system. It makes it easier for a judge to hate you. In an already corrupt system where lawyers are going to take your money, it makes it easier for you to be ignorant, foolish, have a reason for them to fire you, have a reason for them to take your money and have no responsibility to give it back to you because you didn't follow process. For some reason, you misled them. For some reason, you lied to them and they can prove it. All these things are preventable. You don't have to be victims to it. I get that you walk into the victimhood, but you don't have to be a victim to it. You have to realize how important this is. So let's look at the two processes. There's the court process, there's the case process. So court process is all this stuff that we've been talking about that's really rigid. How do you file? Who's the petitioner? How do you serve? How are hearings requested? What are deadlines? How is evidence submitted? What does your judge require? These things are unforgiving. Okay, so if you screw these things up, if you do them wrong, right? The comment that you always get, or that I always get, I did everything right and the judge still didn't care. I doubt it. Okay, and again, let me look at your case. Like biases and corruption happen. It all exists. I agree. But we want to be able to understand what could have changed. When guys get that right, when they learn about those things that are unforgiving, that you cannot mess up at, and they get those things right, their case starts to slowly get better. So if you're screwed, like most of the men that come to us, and you come out screwed, man, you are screwed, you're going to slowly win back favor. Very rarely will it flip. So it flipped against you, but to get it to flip back takes a long time. That's how it goes. And a lot of that, yeah, it has to do with because you're a man. You get a bad rap with these things. Okay, now there's your case process. So there's the court process, unforgiving, rigid, set in stone. You can find out how to do it. You can interview attorneys. You don't have to hire them. Well, you could hire them for an hour and ask them what the process is. We talked about that in the how do we profile our judge properly piece of the course. You can go back and you can watch it. You can watch it for free on YouTube, on the live stream if you can find it. You can do the same thing with asking about the process. You smartly, intelligently, you structure your questions, you learn how to do it right. You go through all of that and you talk to attorneys about what is the proper process for this thing. I have false allegations. I'm parentally alienated. I have these things happening. And then you practice by coming on my free calls and not freaking out and dominating the time with your crazy story. And actually, I do want to give you time for that, but don't do that to attorneys. Do not. Okay. I want to be to the point, to the fact. So then we get into your case process. And this is all the stuff on the inside, all the stuff that you do. Okay. This is your internal strategy for the case. What order to file? Okay. How is it to introduce evidence and at what times? How do you build a timeline? How do you use slow evidence? Meaning, like, how do we use this evidence that's going to maybe set off a chain of other things and different actions? Okay. How do you get credibility? How do you question somebody's credibility? Where's the best time to do that? How do you prepare long term? So it's kind of interesting because this is where we get into strategy. All right. So court process is the structural skeleton that your case has to fit into. Your process is the movement, it's the muscle, it's the nervous system. When we talk about case law, and again, I talk to a lot of pro se dads, a lot of pro se dads who consistently lose, and I don't want you to lose. In addition to that, we have a lot of pro se dads who win, and they're in our community. They give a lot back because it was really hard because they got a bunch of crappy information from people telling you to do the wrong thing. In this whole deal, right? We hear so many pro se dads talk about the strategy of the law. They've studied the law and they get it. And then they tell me how smart they are. And I'm just supposed to go, oh man, no wonder the judge, like you should have told the judge that. How, oh, you probably did. Not a good idea. Don't try and convince a lawyer or a judge how smart you are. It's not, you don't even need it. Like I say in the first couple lessons, somebody with an IQ of 80 can win in family court. Because winning, yeah, process is difficult, it's crazy, but it's mentally hard and you have to follow the structure. Somebody who's highly intelligent and gets their way, they make their own structure. You don't want to do that. You follow their structure. And so men will study the law, looking for that loophole. They're looking for that thing because if they study it more, they can, this is the way they get ahead in every area of their life. They're smarter. Why aren't you studying the process? Nobody does. Like again, everybody always tells me how smart they are, how rational they are, and I watch you lose. So if you're saying that to yourself right now, just know probability-wise, if you have high conflict, if there's parental alienation, if there's false allegations, if your kids are being brainwashed, if your kids have been kidnapped somewhere, and you're saying that you're going to rely on your intelligence, probability-wise, it doesn't look good from my experience. You're going to stay an alienated parent. And we want to go, instead of studying the laws in an intelligent way, we want to use our intelligence to study what is the process. Okay, so check this out. We have the court process, the rigid system. Study that. Do not screw that up. Go to the county clerk, talk about what you can get whatever packets you can, watch family court, watch your family court, watch other family court, watch whatever you can to get the rigidness of the court process. If it's not your family court, it's going to be similar, and it's better than sitting online and listening and watching to any talking head, including myself. Okay? But then there's the internal process, and this is the stuff of what order do you do things in? If they're lying, if they have NPD, this is amazing to me. Amazing. I don't understand this, and it's frustrating because I watch you guys lose, and everybody who loses against a narcissist or a borderline talks about how they're gonna get her, right? Then get her. It's pretty easy. They have a pattern, they've shown it to you, you lived it. I get that it works against you and all this sort of stuff, but you have the most amount of information about this. If they're gonna lie and they're already lying, anything that is sworn, anything that is under oath in the beginning of your case is going to have the most amount of lies. This is really simple, okay? But then, and I've done this a lot, so if you're in this, you're going, but she really knows the system. No, she doesn't. Your narcissistic ex, that's a man or a woman, I don't care, does not know the system. We have enough men in our groups who have lawyers as exes that we defeat to understand that if they're really smart and know the system, you will trap yourself if you're lying and doing all that sort of stuff, right? Because you're going to blow it. You're going to blow it. Okay. So I want you to think, what is the order of this? What is the most valuable evidence we can produce where lying matters? Because it may not matter. It also may not matter, right? We have to start understanding the internal structure of our process. Okay, in a 3-year case, and it's starting out, true story. Okay, you may not be in this situation. Again, your situation is so unique. You need to understand that you have to sift through a lot of stuff, and the stuff you should sift through is the process. not the laws. Those are important, right? You want the order of the court. You want to watch family court because what happened with two guys on our paid group calls last night, two guys, their ex has a temporary protective order against her. The other guy is going in for a temporary parenting plan, and his ex has some other criminal issues coming her way. The criminal stuff, usually in court, isn't going to matter so much in family court. It can, it's not going to look good, but they're two separate courts. So they may not communicate. But because we know, at least in my groups, that we're preparing for a 2 or 3 year case, we want it to be done in 6 months. But we're preparing for a 2 and 3 year case because we're not going to believe in the lie, the false hope, the misinformation people give, the bullshit, the fake false hope that AI gives you, whatever. All these things are helpful, right? But the way we turn it into BS screws us. So we want to prepare for 2 and 3 years. So what are those guys doing? Two of the same strategies that you don't hear people talk about. It's real obvious. Again, like we want to look at this, and it's all the process. So we're going to family court. There's a temporary protective order against the mom. This is usually not the case. In this time, the dad needs to get as much evidence that the state will give to him that is highly valuable in all custody cases. Not to be mean to her and screw her over and be abusive to her, like so many people are with, well, false allegations for both men and women on this, but in my case, a lot of dads, so that you can have the power to stop all the BS and set things right. And if somebody's lying, they deserve punishment for that. So he's going in for for her temporary protective order hearing. In that, whether it goes permanent, gets delayed another 3 months, whatever it is, you want to then request some excellent third-party witnesses that are going to be helpful in your entire case. Why? Because you're looking at the process. You understand how it works. This is not news to you. You're not waiting for the court to give you randomly stuff that is going to be some of the most valuable arguments in existence in family law. You're going to request them because you can, and you won't have to pay for them. And they usually cost a lot of money, like 10 grand. You're going to say, you know, there's some psychological issues, and we want to request psych evals for myself, the kids, and her, so that we can have the best way to step forward. Not because she's a lying, evil person and deserves a protective order, but because you do want to have the best information to step forward calmly. You could also say, I want to have a custody evaluator, and I want to have therapy with the kids and myself, and parenting therapy that is appointed by the court. So that means the people that are introduced, right? And again, all the people who say family court is corrupt and everybody in it sucks, you're probably right. But if they're important witnesses that are going to be the most high leverage people in your case, that if you can get in your favor will be the closest thing to a definitive win, you probably want that, right? And there's a lot of evidence towards that. If you watch family court, you'll see it, right? You will see the custody evaluators, parenting evaluators, GALs, all these different people. They're really important in your case. They mean a lot. So we want the ones that mean the most, or that could point out psychological disorders or criminal behavior or different things that are standalone evidence in family court. So let's say this. Let's say your ex is a narcissist, and her therapist this year gave her a diagnosis of having NPD. That diagnosis is usually in family court less valuable than a court-appointed psych evaluator. Their report is most important. So if we have the upper hand and we understand the process, we go, whoa, we have an advantage in the court where certain aspects of the mom that is making up lies against us, that's alienating the child from us, we can now produce for oftentimes free, without question. All we have to do is ask. Hopefully it gets granted, may not. We have that opportunity. And because we understand the court's process, our internal cases process, We can start doing these things. Now, understand, you might be on the flip side of that. So, what is the process for that? What if we have a custody evaluator coming against us and there's all these false allegations? And at first, they're starting out going like, well, they said you were an alcoholic, you were violent, you're abusive, you're a sex trafficker. I'm going to look at all these things. You're starting off on the back foot. Well, what's their process? Anybody in your case, anybody who's introduced your case, you need to know their process. The GAL's process, CPS's process. You need to know how they're supposed to file things. You need to know if things are questioned. How can you question them? How would you present that? When is it a lost cause? When do you move on to the next thing? You need to know all of that. And if you don't know it and you're high conflict, it's coming. And you're setting yourself up for a loss. Watch Family Court. Get as much information on studying GALs. You don't know anything. You are an empty cup. You need to learn from other people. One of the things that I did that was super important, and it's a part of my group now, but I went and met different people. Like I found out, how do you become a GAL? It's actually really easy in Travis County, Texas. And you can go in and meet people applying and looking at that, and you can talk to the different the people at CASA who are in charge of it. You can find all of that. And it will help you when you meet them. But if you walk in blind, they're always an enemy. If you walk in blind and it's biased and it doesn't like you and it's corrupt, like everybody says, and you just say, that's good enough for me. Sorry, kids. You're screwed and I'm screwed. We're just all going to go downhill from here. Then yeah, man, you're going to lose. But if you want to learn those things, you can. You have to be really resourceful. Learn the process. Each GAL has a process. Each custody evaluator has a process. Each judge has a process. It's hard to learn. You got to be hands-on. And you got to do it. And just remember, you need to know the process of the court, and you need the process of your case. One is fluid, and the other one's rigid. And all that fluid stuff needs to fit into this language of the courts that is super rigid. Okay? This next part is the delusion of surprise attacks. So if I surprise her in family court, I'm going to win. If I pay my child support that she wants, she's going to use it to screw me. If I do these things, it's going to work against me. Okay? How you're going to lose instantly is looking for loopholes, looking for surprise attacks, looking for things that don't follow the process so you can sabotage her. Now, this sucks because, look, it sucks. You're paying X amount of alimony, whatever it is, you're doing things that they're asking for that seems like they're helping them. There's a lot to this. When you give somebody money who doesn't deserve it, they spend it. They're not going to be good at using it against you. They're good at using it for their selfish needs. When it comes down to trying to sabotage their case with limiting information and all that sort of stuff, it ultimately could limit you. Now, there could be a strategy of, I'll give you an example. Depositions were happening. The client was basically saying, they were being asked something about a certain form of evidence. And they were about to answer it. And their attorney talked to them and asked for a moment with their client. They said, this is something you don't have to bring up. Make them subpoena it. Make them pay to work for it because they can. So there's certain aspects where that can be a part of it, but you need people that are not emotionally attached, understand the process, understand the game to be helping you. Now, I get it. You probably hate lawyers and distrust the entire court system, but this would be a good thing for you to have. Okay? So, what you want to understand is surprise attacks. If the court sees it, it's going to make them mad. It's going to piss off the judge. You never want to have a judge pissed off at you. Okay? It could also exclude the evidence. Something could be wrong in it. It's very easily. It could have sanctions come up, meaning something's questioned. Okay, you could have discovery violations. And you're basically going to irritate the entire system. If you try and do this to a GAL, a custody evaluator, an important third-party witness, it's also going to do the same thing. In the court, is going to want to see somebody. The male that you are, that they want to hate, is going to be much easier, much more easily hated if they try and get something for nothing. If they try and pull one over on the court, they try and do the surprise attack. They want that male. They want that token male. You want to be that token male that does everything right, that may have all the traits that make an evil person in our society, these fathers. They want them to have disclosure. They want them to have clean filings. They want them to have proper service. They want organization, clarity, timeliness. They want respect in the court so they can go, you know what? I don't hate men. This guy is pretty good. So the court punishes chaos. They punish emotional outbursts. They punish emotional filings, hidden evidence, long paragraphs, gotcha moments. They don't like that. You might be thinking, well, that's what she did to win. This is also in a different structure, right? Who's the petitioner? Who's filing first? Who's going first? Who gets an advantage? Who's on a back foot? Maybe they're not even at an advantage. You just didn't defend it right and you made them at an advantage and now you're going backwards. You really have to understand all these dynamics, right? Very, very difficult. It's hard, but you don't want the surprise attacks. You do not want them. All right. You want to avoid all of that. So, process is going to make your truth visible. Now, let's take a step back from this one. What is your truth? Your truth is probably that she sucks, she lied, she's a horrible person, she did this and that. The allegations are wrong. But this isn't the truth that the court wants. The court could care about those things, but it's got to go through this process first, like evidence being filed, argued in the right way, and it's got to move into empower a statute or a law. And it's got to be in the language that always happens. What's this mysterious language? It's the language you got to learn. Watch Family Court, okay? Judges aren't going to care about your trauma, her lying, her blame. They're not going to care about the stress it caused you, how it made you lose a job. They're not going to care about your pain. They can. But first, they need to understand how it fits in their perspective of the laws first. And then they're going, and then this man suffered. And you've lied to him all these times. But that all comes after you tilt them over into what you want to talk about and how the laws were broken and the way that they see it, okay? So at first, before any of that, they're going neutral, even though they might be biases, all hell. But they're going neutral and they're going, okay, where are the filings? Where's the admissibility? Where's the evidence? How's this relevant? Where's the structure? Are they arguing it properly? Are they going in order? Are they addressing things in the right ways? When these things are happening, it gives them the possibility, right, for them to start seeing all these other traits of betrayals and so on. Now, imagine this. This happens all the time. She's mouthing off, mouthing off. You start mouthing off, and the judge just says, stop. Sadly, because of many, many biases, the judge sees you as the biggest threat. Anybody who's the biggest threat, man or woman, but usually it's the man. The father is the biggest threat. Look, you need to stop. The mom starts partying. Judge wants to get the extra case. Says, look, you need to control yourself, ma'am. I can hold you in contempt too. But you, sir, blah, 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 blah. Moving on. Parenting plan is whatever the mom says, you're good to go, or whatever. A judge rushes their judgment and you're screwed for 3 more months. So you want to really stick to doing everything right. Everybody argues. That's not what the judge cares about. She can yell, whatever. It's most likely because how you reacted back. Now, maybe not. Maybe not. But the most you can do is this. The most you can do is do things right within the court. It's the only way to step forward. Okay? Think of it this way. A judge is really important. In the court is where the decision is being made. A judge is going to sign something that's going to affect your life and your kid's life. They're not going to have to be responsible for it, but you are going to live it. If you want the possibility of that judge to see you properly, Judge, commissioner, magistrate, whatever, referee, you need to follow that judge's process. And if you deviate from it, they really can't see your kid. They have to react to it. And they're not going to like you. They're going to react against you. This is not good. You know what else is not good? Is my phone battery's about to die. So TikTok, we'll try and wrap this up. Okay, let's look at evidence that wins in family court. This is a huge one. People comment on my videos, it's, tell me, you didn't tell me it. You didn't tell me how to win. Okay, so this one is where you need to pay attention because it's going to be a really hard, long answer, and it's complicated because I get so many things from you guys. And again, just think about this. This is very hard to do. This comes from a very hard job of dealing with men at their lowest points, men that go to prison and they shouldn't, that I follow and work with them and all these different things. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to leave my 60 hours of working with people a week and make free videos, 20 of those hours in October alone, 15 in November, and who knows in December, but already maybe 5 hours in December of free content for you guys. Evidence is not just screenshots, text messages, her lying, your friends or family members saying as a witness to them being a bad person, liar, horrible, deceitful. They screwed you over on first right of refusal. It's not paragraphs. It's not emotional explanations. That's not evidence. This is all noise. Evidence needs to speak for itself. So rule number one with evidence. Rule number one is the thing you don't want to hear is your evidence needs to talk without you talking. That means how you file the text messages, how you file whatever's in Talking Parents or Our Family Wizard, how you present different photographic evidence, different audios, different videos, how witness testimony, affidavits, all of your discovery, your interrogatories, your depositions, all of the evidence of that courtroom transcripts are filed in the right way, in the right order, so it tells your case. You say nothing. You should have to argue as little as possible. Now, I know that's not fully possible. We're going to have to argue. We're going to have to present it. But you want it to be so good that it's just there. I'll give you an example. Depositions happen. Probably one of the best things you can do for your case. Some states you can only do them once. Other states you can do them multiple times. Some states you can do it only for 3 hours. Other states you can do it for as long as you want. Depositions is when your attorney or you, somebody commented on my YouTube videos today saying that they wanted to depose their ex themselves. This is not the best idea because it could get argued in so many ways, right? But they want to do it. And if you have to do that, then you got to do it. But you really need to prepare for it because depositions are really powerful and you don't want any of it to get thrown out. But let's say in those depositions, there's something in there which says, I never stole money from this person. Okay. And you have proof that they stole money from this person. How is that relevant to custody? It's not, but it's a lie. Okay. So then it could be relevant as an aspect of their character. And then let's say in that deposition, they talk about an affair, or they say that they swear that they saw you having an affair with somebody else. Something like this, right? Which in a no-fault state, let's say it's not relevant, but they're swearing by it. And then you know it's not true. What you want in all of that, because we understand the process, is that, or that there's a process to it, is that we need to show definitive proof to those things. So let's say in that deposition, we want as much time and date and details as possible, because that's going to make it easier to argue. So what that means is if they say, well, I know because he was having an affair these times in April, and I saw this and that, you know the exact dates and the claims, and then you can say, well, on April 17th, like they're claiming, this didn't happen because I was there in the cell phone towers and blah, 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 right? You can somehow prove it was a lie. But again, this doesn't really matter, right? Because it's just lies. And the only way it could matter is to maybe discredit a witness more or whatever. But then we also have something that affects custody. So there could be something where, like here's a big one. Everybody's upset about false allegations and how I could countersue. And they're going to be the guy that's going to do it. But probability wise, you shouldn't focus on that just yet, but you should try and gather as much evidence as possible in your family court case so that you could stack it. So what you get now early on, hopefully your depositions are early on because that's when people are going to lie the most and you're paying attention to the process because again, we want you to use your intelligence not towards things that are unintelligent and don't work like just studying the law, kind of important, but if we know the process, we can stack our evidence. Okay? So we go through and we go, man, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that she was willing to lie about false allegations to get her edge because she thought it was funny. Now, how am I going to do that? She discussed it with friends and whatever, and she admits to it in that. And that would be awesome, right? We have it there. But how does that matter in custody or divorce? How does it matter for property division? How does it matter for spousal support, alimony? How does that matter for who gets the dogs? How does that matter for visitation, custody, and so on? Well, it was saying I was a bad father, so it must be there. It could look pretty bad, but I now am creating a sworn court document that could even be videotaped. But a stenographer, a court reporter, is taking all that information in. And they have it all there, right? They're recording it on audio, they're typing it out, they're going to produce a document, a couple weeks later when they go through it all and perfect it. Okay? All of that is there. Well, what I know I need in this evidence to have it really tell its tale, because now, okay, I've sworn documents of her lying about false allegations, lying about whatever affair of me or whatever, lying about money, lying about stealing, lying about all this stuff. And I think that matters because I'm pissed off that somebody's getting away with lying about my life and it's affecting their kids. But it actually doesn't affect the courts that much. However, if I have a good lawyer and I'm not doing depositions myself and I'm not emotionally exploited and I realize how important every single piece of evidence in court is, I realize all of that. So I do my due diligence. I get a think tank. I get a hive mind. I join a group like mine and I have people hammer in and work with you on what needs to happen in this. I then get one thing to spearhead that does matter in custody. That may be evidence towards keeping the kids in the car or evidence toward whatever it is, right? Evidence towards colluding with a therapist to have a therapist change their testimony and testify in our favor. These types of things I want. I want to know what the court cares about and target hyper specific what those things are so it will sway a judge's opinion. I do not want the opinion of my mom, friends, Reddit forums, YouTube people, TikTok people to construct that for me. I want to watch family court, study the judge, talk to other men who have won custody successfully. I want people, as we talk about in the first lesson of this, that I want to start taking advice from people who've been in front of a judge 10 times, win or loss, but they understand how the court works. I want those people to help find out what a judge is going to care about based off the state laws and statutes in family court. That's what I want. I want those things targeted in every piece of evidence that I have. And then guess what happens? We put it in front of the court and we can say, this matters about custody because they used drugs while driving in a car with the kids in it, and it's admitted or whatever it is, and it's proven. And in that, they also lied about this, and that. And if we decide to sue them later for defamation or whatever, you might have a hard time, and most lawyers may not take it, and there's all sorts of things with it. But now we have all this other stuff. We have a court document under oath talking about all those other things. We need our evidence structured, and all of it needs to be admissible. None of it can be flawed in any way. None of it can be polluted. One of the things that was told to me way back when by one of my attorneys, he says, Steve, if you ever lie in court, even for a small thing, it could fuck everything up. So the more that you do court and do things right, right? Do your things right in your attack, in your organization. You need to understand how you also need to present yourself right. It's really, really important. When you're trying to pull a fast one, right? You get that something for nothing, you pull the sneaky trick, you surprise attack. It's not good. So everything in evidence needs to speak for itself. It needs to be the best argument and then untie and unlock other arguments and produce evidence for future cases. As my attorney also once told me, you want the case that is done after anything that is court involved, whether that's mediation, depositions, whether that's a hearing. Now, that's a tall order, but that should be your structure. Now, if you know it can't be done in mediations, then what are you doing that for? Well, you're doing it because you have to. You most likely have to do mediation. You're gathering their argument. You're learning what they're going to ask for. That's not going to change. And if it does change, it's only going to up to more exaggerated claims before the hearing. And they're going to argue for whatever and try and get something in the middle. You need to understand how all this works. Your evidence needs to be structured. It needs to have the most strategic part of it. And again, I always say this, a man with an IQ of 80 can do this. A man with an IQ of 140 will overcomplicate it. Now, a man with an IQ of 140 or 150, 160, 130, 100, you could do great with it. But you have to understand that it's not about you being smarter. It's about you being able to follow the process and then intelligently start to pick the things that are going to spearhead your case. How do you know that? You talk to judges, you watch family court, you talk to lawyers about your judge, you talk to other dads who have won, and you figure out what exactly will matter, and you find out what that is, and you're patient about it. Don't, just for the record, don't try and be smarter than an attorney or a judge if you get the opportunity to talk to one. You lay out your case and you ask what could be used as leverage in this. You can almost always find something. And here's the other thing too. If you know the process is the punishment. The process delays. The process makes things hard. Usually the process is attacking you in high conflict and you're on the back foot and there's no consequences that they have. But once they start to have consequences and they have a personality disorder or they're a little bit crazy, they're willing to lie under oath, whatever it is, guess what the process is? The process makes them explode, get out of order, and start to produce evidence for you. That'll happen. If they have a personality, if they have addiction issues, or personality disorder, addiction issues, anything like that, it's going to work against them. You got to use the process against them in that. How do you do that? A lot of times with evidence. How do you get more evidence? More pressure on them. Not as a trick or a trap, but because it's there. And it's there, man, take it. But we don't. We don't do it enough, right? We got to learn the right ways, okay? So a judge wants all the clean labels, timelines, short summaries, no emotional context. But how much evidence do we need? This is a big one. I want you to cherry pick this sucker in your brain. What evidence works? How much do we need? What's going to argue the point? What point are we trying to make? If we have evidence that's going to argue one point, we have that spearhead, right? That's there. We probably need 2 or 3 other pieces of evidence to empower it. Really important. Okay. If we're arguing false allegations, right? So we only work with high conflict in my groups. If we're arguing false allegations, we don't need a GAL to say, this is the good parent, this is the bad parent. Or my recommendation is that the dad gets 50-50. Like, we need to stop with all this stuff or whatever it is, right? This is key. There's a couple of questions here on TikTok. I just want to say, guys, you're asking a lot of questions that are answered for free all over my YouTube and all over my TikToks. If you care about your kids. So I now understand everything that I have clearly, and coercive control and constitutional abuse. Oh, continual abuse. and loyalty. How do I protect my son's psychological welfare without fighting the game? My only way for me to answer these questions is with long-term learning. Go to my profile or click the link down below in this video if you're watching it on YouTube and get in my high conflict custody portal. There's free lessons there. We switched it up in November. It used to be the 30 and 30, but now there's going to be like 80 freaking free lessons or something like that, probably more than that, that break down how you do these things. I I I need to know about your case. Do you support moms? In January, we're going to start a group for mothers. It's probably going to come towards the end of January, but I do work with moms now. It's just all privately. But there'll be something that'll be a little bit more better for the mothers. And we do have a narcissistic abuse support group that is not yet advertised, but there's people that have been working within it for probably like 6 months now. And there's women included in that and therapy involved in that. It's great. And it's all designed on custody. So it's narcissistic abuse in a custody battle. You see that catch? That was pretty good, man. Okay, my phone's also about to run out of batteries. So how much evidence do we need? How much evidence do we need to make our case? So we want a spearhead point of evidence that empowers a family law statute straight up. It needs to make an argument, and it needs to be consistent with what we see in the courts. It's hard to articulate, right? Hard to do. But you got to watch family court. You got to get it right. Talk to other people who have won. This is available for free from me. Like, I get that nobody's doing it, but you also have to abide by the rules. Don't be an asshole. Okay. So if you have that, it's best to have 2 or 3 pieces of evidence. So, like I said, in false allegations, a lot of people get a GAL or they'll get a custody evaluator. Like in one case with a woman, there was a custody evaluator that said, I really think that dad has problems and we want to move forward with this parenting plan. That judge kept things how they were. They didn't augment the parenting plan to what the custody evaluator said. And one of the things that we're always cautious about now, custody evaluators report is super valuable. It's one of the best third-party witnesses. But we want a second one. And not a second piece of evidence that's a screenshot or some stories or maybe bad emails. Those are important, right? I don't want to say those are bad. You want to have those. But you want the custody evaluator in a GAL. You want a custody evaluator and an appointed therapist. You want a psych eval. And you want in your hearing to always be helping you produce more evidence. So when you go to your hearing for some sort of modification or whatever it is, and you have the custody evaluator, you want that custody evaluator's report to help empower and really have you, your attorney, argue for psych evals or whatever it is beyond that. You want more. You always want more of exactly what works. Okay? So, and then there's a comment here, unless it's a hired smoking gun. True, right? Unless it's somebody that's going to work against you. So if you have a therapist that is bought out against you, you need to know how to argue that because you can. Probability moves against you. Cards get stacked against you. But if you just say you're a victim and you quit, you lose. Because in family court, what do we always say? Every day there's 100 ways to lose. But every day there's at least one way to win. Okay? And that's not false hope. That's 1% some days. It's going to be really hard. But are you up for it? Are you a parent that's willing to do anything? Because you can find it. And the process and your evidence is going to help you find that. I really want you to understand that. Okay? So, if let's say, pro se, parental alienation, multiple years, dad wins full custody. Mom now gone. Dad was kept from the kids for a long time. This started out, as all false allegation cases start out, with a GAL against the dad. That's a big player. So, friend of the court or GAL is usually the first wave of third party to analyze, look at both parents in the child. Easiest to manipulate and influence. Sucks, don't know why, whatever. And most dads walk into that unprepared. And then that screws up their case for 6 months. Okay, so in this person's case, it screwed it up for years. And they won it pro se. They won full custody pro se and changed the laws in their state and county. It's a pretty big deal. Don't know many dads. I only know one dad who's done that. Him. Okay. I know many dads that say they want to do that, and then they won't want to listen to him because they got the 140 IQ and they know everything and they've studied the laws and they get it, man. You need to listen to people like that. Okay. And again, with them, it's process and evidence. So how did they turn a GAL? Well, what had to happen is they had to challenge the scope of the GAL. Eventually, they got a new GAL. This took a long time. They went through multiple therapists who were first against them, who empowered the mom, or who saw abuse from the mom, but then didn't stand up for it. CPS actually made a claim against the mom, had another investigation, but wouldn't take away the kids because it was already taken away from the dad. There's all this stuff that really sucks. Wouldn't that suck if that was you, right? Because it's so frustrating. It would make you want to quit. It would make you say the court is corrupt and everything sucks, and I quit. Okay, many dads are in that and they quit, but this dad didn't quit, and the courts gave him custody. Okay, so how did these things happen? How did they happen? Right? We had to switch from a court-appointed GAL that was against them. It took a long time. We had to know how to challenge that. We had to know how to introduce new ones. All of this, well, children are being harmed and abused. It's horrible, okay? A horrible thing, but that's how it happens. And it's very difficult. And if you just give up and say it sucks, because there's not a lot of information on it, dude, nobody wins, okay? So this is why we're trying to carry this message. Okay, so the court is going to see evidence through clarity, relevance, how things are properly timelined, how it empowers the statute, the structure, if it's admissible. This lens that the court looks through, its glasses, so to speak, are the filter that everything has to go through. It has to work within that. Good evidence, the best evidence, how you file it. Guys who are always saying, you didn't answer my question on evidence in your 3-minute video. You can't. This is why. But your good evidence, your evidence that you're trying to put together for your case, needs to help you now. It needs to help you later. It needs to help you at trial. It needs to help you with CPS. It needs to help you with GALs. It needs to help you with modifications. It needs to help you 10 years later when she flips out and argues about the next thing. It needs to help you with your credibility always, every single thing. And in order to know what that is, you have to know the timelines of the courts, the process. You need to be familiar with family court. You need to understand long-term cases. You need to watch a lot, more than just 15 cases. If you want to understand evidence, do not expect it from a 3, 10-minute, 2-hour, even 20-hour video series. You can learn a lot from those of how to file, what you need to do, but your court is going to be specific. So how I do it in Travis County is not going to be the same for Harris County. You have to understand that. Your judge is going to be different. There's going to be variables. You have to know it. Okay? And there are consistencies with that. How you talk to a GAL when you're under investigation is going to be very different than if they're just checking it out. But if there's a CPS investigation going on, it's going to be completely different. And it's a completely different process. There's a couple things that I always hammer home. You're a parent first, you're a litigant second, and third, you have some concerns about the other parent. But first and foremost, you are a parent and you do all the things that are right. And you understand because you've studied their protocol of what that is. If you say, Steve, you, because I just know you and you're supposed to be an expert and I expect you and you should care about men because I say so and I'm finally in pain. I haven't seen the 20 years of work you've done, but I'm in pain and give me this first. Tell me what to say to the GAL. This every day I get somebody saying this to me. Tell me the rules. Show me, prove it. I don't know anything about your case. I need to know more about your GAL. And number one is you need to know it. Like I'm trying to tell you this. Okay. If you want to know what evidence is going to help you most in high conflict, where there's personality disorders, psych evals, GAL to custody evaluator to court appointed therapist, or GAL to court appointed therapist to custody evaluator, great chain. Psych evals, forensic psych evals, huge. You can't just request them. You need a GAL, most likely first. If you haven't done that first, they're the ones who's going to investigate for probably 3 months. They're going to investigate for a couple days, and then it's going to take them 3 months to do their report. And then you go to the courts and you ask for more. Bella here writes in, the courts literally don't care. Thank you for just coming on my TikTok. But for the last 2 hours, I've been trying to explain that you can't have that argument. You have to learn the process of how to do this. And again, like it's so frustrating when you have a group of men who have won that are saying, Steve, carry the message of how we win. And all of them start off saying, dude, I'm going to help you out and do a podcast and they realize how hard it is. And they realize you're getting men and women at their worst moments. And we are sitting there fighting with blood, sweat, and tears. And we're winning. We're trying to tell you what we do. And it's like, man, I can't, I quit. It sucks. We say that every day, but we get up and we do these things. Okay. So smaller pieces of evidence that are really important. So those big ones are going to be like GALs, court appointed therapy, not just regular therapy. You're going to have custody evaluators, parenting coordinators. You're going to have moderators that check out supervised visitation, but they're not, you want to get the custody evaluators. You're going to have, and then psych evals, forensic psych evals, really important. But smaller ones are going to be school records, patterns of when you show up at school, witness testimonies towards that, how the child's performance is done in school while they're interacting with you or these types of things, visitation calendars. You want to have all of that charted out, when you see them, when you didn't show up, when you could show up, all these different things. Those are smaller things, but those are really important because it argues, one, you as a parent, but it argues also in a way that the court wants you to argue. And you have to see all of it. Again, if we go back and we watch the initial lessons of this, the first, whatever it is, 3 or 4 hours of this whole series, there's 11 lessons. And I don't know, it's probably like 16 hours of a free course that's all there. Winners and losers, the winners and losers mentality is it all sucks and it's unfair. They don't care. I get that you feel that way. Courts, custody is not ruled, or they don't care about how you feel. They care about evidence in the process, okay? Messy evidence equals no evidence. Your evidence has to be credible. Your evidence has to be clean. Clean evidence equals evidence that has an argument. It has a chance in court. The court assigns credibility based on structure and process and not emotion. Okay? Very important. So this is the last little section of this part. I really want you to understand. In this whole thing we covered, I don't know how many hours it is, if it's 2 or 4 or maybe 6 hours. We covered the judge, the laws, the process. 3 things that you have to learn. The biggest mistake is everybody starts with the laws. If I understand the laws, I'm going to get it right. You will most likely fail. The biggest priority to learn in this is what? It is the judge. They decide everything. They are the referee. If you get it wrong, you are screwed. Now, the judge is following rules. What are those rules? Those rules are the laws. So if a judge, their ruling is going to determine so much, and they're following the rules, you have to see how they interpret the rules. So all those laws are really important. They matter a lot. But we need to see how that judge interprets it. Now, the process is how things are filed. And remember, there's the court process, there's the case process. The court process is rigid. You cannot screw that up. Everything has to be done right. If you do those things wrong, it doesn't work. The case process is the structure and order and all this moving parts, right? That was the example of where we have like depositions, or maybe we file interrogatories, we file different statements first because that's where people are going to lie the most. People are the most reactive. When people are under the most pressure and they're running out of money, we could hit more with things that are going to cost more money and all these things. And that, yeah, man, I hate that about the law. But if you're going to stay stagnant in a case, right, you're not going to court. Make it move. Make it move, right? So that's all of the process of your case. A lot of internal stuff, the most complicated. When people talk about studying, and they say, I studied the laws and the statutes, lose. That makes you lose. Not because laws and statutes are bad, but because if you do laws and statutes and you think that that's it and not this your case process, you'll get it all wrong. Your case process, strategy within your case, the order of things, the timing of things, the 2-year, 3-year plan, that's how you win. And much more effective than, like, if you're low on the laws and higher on that, you're better off. Okay. So also within this, there's evidence, which is very, very complicated, very hard. Dedicate your life to it. Not blindly. Stay away from BS people. In the first lessons of this, we say if people do not have experience of 10 times arguing a case where they could lose something in front of a judge in family court, they don't know. They're going to have limited perspective. Their wins are going to be biased. Their losses are going to be biased. They're not going to realize all the reasons why they won or lost. And 10 times in front of a judge, I don't care if you lost every time, but if you fought hard, you're going to learn way more than somebody who just had a few experiences that is saying they're an expert. This makes the dumbest part of all this. All the moms and dads who are on the comment section of this, railing in on what they think of all these different things, emphatic about whatever it is with family law. It is what's making this toxic just as much as the system. And I get it. The system crapped you out and you smell like the horrible gut and intestines of the shitty judges and court system. But you need to change it. You got to change it. We need to have good information. Okay. So we need to understand the judges. We need to understand the laws in the right way. We need to understand the process. We need to understand evidence. We need to stop listening to the crap that is out there on this. And this is what's going to help you win. Okay? We want to stop losing. How we're going to get ahead of a system that is corrupt, will take your money, doesn't care about fairness, and it's affecting our kids and our lives, is through people who go out and win, come and aggregate all the information on that and try and present it to you. I get it, man. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy to work 50, 60 hours a week, every single week for 17, 20 years on this and other things, and then come and make content. It's not going to be the best stuff. I try. But to be honest, my concern is with the dude who went to prison today, how I can help him in a case that had nothing to do with anything in our group. My concern is people who actually need help every day for 20 years. Every day, the worst stuff. So in this, I hope there's some awesome marketing personality who gets it all right. I hope there's somebody that does it all neat and with a bow for you to understand it. But until then, there's me and maybe a handful of other people doing it. And go out and win your case. Stop buying into the BS. Stop. Stop with the gossip. You needed to decompress. I get it. But go out and be able to go out and win. And if you want help for free, for me to help you, and all I'm asking that you keep it private, you respect me, you do not talk in certain ways that are going to interrupt the calls, and you sidetrack it to go on an anthem about some political issue or whatever stuff. come on my free calls, get into my free portal. You join an email list, I email you a bunch of stuff. You're probably advertised to once a month, and you get content of what actually works every single day and just tons and tons of unlimited lessons and free calls where you can talk to me. If that's too much for you, check out the thousands of hours that are on YouTube and on TikTok and get your information there. I think that was good, guys, or at least it was good for me. I hope you guys win. Chris on here, you need direction? Dude, I have it. Please, please get the help. We have it to help you. Go to my profile, get on the high conflict custody list. It's free. Show up Tuesday night when we do our live call that's private. Talk to me and we'll help you. And you'll talk to other dads who win, and be respectful. Don't be a dick. You've probably gotten a lot of misinformation, and that could be part of why you're losing as well as the corruption, but talk to some people who have won. And we will talk to you guys soon. Help is there. See you later, guys. I hope you have a good day. Thank you, YouTube. You know what? I'll look at some questions here on YouTube and answer them. I made 40 cents on TikTok. Look at that. Man, focus. 40 cents. That's all that was worth. Actually, I'm not asking for money. Okay. So YouTube, I got to make videos for all the questions that were on YouTube last night because we didn't get to them. So I'm going to screenshot these things. I'm going to keep all of your information private, but YouTube's a little bit more anonymous with it. Sometimes it has your real name, sometimes not. But I'm going to try and answer a lot of these questions in smaller short form video or comments. There's a lot of them. But I'm going to look. YouTube is just so much nicer. And TikTok is good. There's a lot of good people on it, but some people just are dickheads. I don't get it. So YouTube, I wish I could afford you. I'd win more than I lost. Oh, you defend men, not women, not moms. I understand that your skill, knowledge, and helpful to make me want to try again, even though I'm afraid we'd be found and put in danger again. Okay, let me read more. I documented everything I compiled, and I still have my proof, everything I need. Okay, the credible evidence, just no lawyer. Okay, one day God will bless me with a great lawyer. My son is 16. Okay. There's a lot that this lady wrote in. So first off, anybody who's parentally alienated and false claims is horrible, horrible. I have a lot of experience with men, and men are unique in how certain issues come up. Comparison to discredit somebody is wrong. So if I say I'm half Japanese and you're white, and I'm using that comparison to say somehow I'm better or worse, or you owe me something, that's wrong. Okay. But to compare for information of some sort of reality, this is okay. So I'm half Japanese and I'm going to have experiences with how weird that could be in Hawaii as opposed to California, two places that I spent a ton of time in as a child. And it was just the most conflicting thing. If you're not half Japanese, you're not going to understand that. In Hawaii, it's cool. In California, it was kind of weird at the time growing up. And plus, at the time, now there's a lot of half Asian people. That was not when I was growing up. It was a rare thing. So when we compare men and women, we have to compare them for informational reasons. So in family court, there's going to be some differences. So false allegations are going to work towards a man in a certain way that are different from a woman. Okay? It's not saying one's better or worse. And when we do that, we miss the point. Okay, so addiction is probably one of the best examples of this. Addiction stats for men are way more than women. I actually forget what they are, but in being in recovery and understanding addiction and working in addiction more than custody, I can tell you that there's a lot more men that come through that than women. Now, women's stories in addiction are brutal. They're always really harsh. And men's are often harsh, but not as harsh. They can be really bad. So if we were to say like somehow it's better or worse for men and women, this is like the men's movement does this to say addiction is the worst thing and men have it. Well, anybody who really is around addicts, I would feel would not want to say that. And here's why, because you just see that like an addict, right? You want to help them. But a male's path of recovery is going to be different than a female's. All right. And but you're also going to know if you do this, if you really work in this, you look at it, you'd start to notice things of that men, how are these stats, how are they collected? Jails, rehabs, arrests. Well, women get out of a lot of drug things in horrible ways. So they don't get arrested as much, they don't end up in rehab as much. And usually because they're exploited sexually in all these different ways. So that's also bad. So there's less numbers with women. Now, I would say if you took all of those, all the women that weren't counted or whatever, we could assume what that is, probably say that men still have a lot more. But again, the argument that a lot of people turn this into, men and women, or these types of things, is like, well, men are victimized more. Why is it that there's more addicts, or why is it that men there's more false allegations? This should never be an argument of why we need to be hysterical about men's issues. Men's rights or men's issues should solve men's issues, but instead it becomes a man versus a woman thing, and this I think is wrong. Now there are differences, and there should be comparisons to look at how we find solutions and whatever treatments there are for it. I don't know why this isn't talked about. And I really hate the men's movement for this, because men have turned it into gossip and all this crap that makes hysteria. Back to your issue. You know, if you can't see, I believe it says you can't see your son who's 16 or your child who's 16. If you want the court to work this process, you need to take your evidence, you need to learn how to argue it in the best way you can. And however that is. Lawyers are expensive. If you go in pro se, and again, this is another thing too, like dads will say they go through mental numbness in this. This is very common. It could be hard. It could give you a traumatic experience from going to court. It's not like it's an easy thing. It's difficult for everybody, and very, very difficult. The only way you're going to win it is through court. That's the thing. It's the only way you're going to win it. And there's not going to be another way. However, what I want to tell you is that in my groups and for myself, it didn't start out winning. I lost. I didn't get to see my kids for 5 years. There's plenty of dads in our groups who have lost. It was built off of men losing because nobody was helping us. And we're like, how do we find out? We kept losing. We kept finding answers that win, and still men lose, right? So when we have this, it's always how do we still be a dad? Because the other thing is we fall apart. Like I really dislike this too, of how do you live with the trauma of not seeing your child, which is going to be a different experience for a man and a woman, but both are brutal. How do you not fall apart? And that's what you have to look at. You have to look at how do you not fall apart? And it is just key. Okay? So I think that if you go through this whole thing, there's going to be wins and losses. All right? Even if you end up winning, and you have to learn how to survive from that. It's very, very important. Okay? Steve, is it true that you can have your baby delivered and leave it outside any fire station or doorstop and It used to be because I used to. My cousin is a fireman. I never asked him about this, but he'd probably get pissed off. He's like, "Why are you talking about me on this?" Um, but no, that used to be that used to happen. Like I knew firemen, and this was like 20 years ago. But I don't know if it still is. But man, that used to happen. That's an interesting question. Okay, during a deposition, can my lawyer be present to help guide, or basically he prepares me beforehand? So if you're deposed, your lawyer should be there, meaning you're being asked questions. And then I mean, guys want to do depositions themselves, and like, man, what a great thing. But your deposition is so tactically rich, you, man, even if you nail it, you could have 10x'd it with a good lawyer. Like you're just going to miss so much. You have to be so emotionally detached to make your, like, to get all of it out of your deposition. So also your idea of winning is going to be emotional as opposed to like tactical. So you, man, she suffered and we finally got these lies and I made her scared. And all those things could happen and they could be good, because they're for you in the moment, even though they might be, bad or morally bad or something like that. But your deposition needs to be court rich, and that's hard to get when you're just doing it. But yeah, your lawyer should be present. Certain states might have different things going on. Okay, you guys are passing numbers in the chat. I think that's a good thing. um and again, it's like, you guys know I'm not responsible for your number, but community, man. Okay, I'm technically facing prison time with a trial in January for custody interference. I didn't take the year probation offer. I want the truth out. I just sent an email to join your community tonight. Cool, cool. Okay, I have something for that. So if you're technically facing prison, this is a criminal charge. Okay, and so a criminal charge may not be the place, and it might be the place for you to see if you can expose some amount of, something. But if your main goal is to expose the truth, it's probably not looking into the focus necessary to argue a criminal case. Okay, and criminal cases are tough because when you're going against the DA, dude, I mean, they have a 90+% win rate. And so criminal cases are never good, but they're going to follow a more expected due process. They're going to follow due process. And family court can bypass a lot of those things because it can improvise. Okay. But criminal court, oftentimes they're going to limit evidence and they're like, you have things stacked against you in that. Like, so somebody wrote in as the game is rigged. Criminal court, the game is rigged more than in family court. Family court, it's negligent and under pressure and disorganized. Okay. And it could be rigged too. It could be all those things. So you want to think about all of those things. So I don't know anything about your case, but I would want to look at all the different aspects of your case. And I would look at whatever offers there are and how you could argue what you want to argue. But I don't think, and I'm not sure, right? But I don't think you could argue the truth to coming out or some sort of exposure in a criminal case. It might not accomplish that. So we want to look at those things. I had a criminal case. I took a plea. If I knew more about it, I wouldn't have, but I didn't. I had no idea, right? At the time, this was like 15 years ago or something, but like I had no idea of what any of this was. And I totally get why I took a plea. Many people get forced into it. It's a horrible thing. Okay, no case law. Cite. Yeah, it's good. Know the process. Know the process. Learn the process. Okay, emotion won't win. Chaos won't win. Order, law, and facts win. Authenticate. You, man, damn, you are going off. Good job. I think I know who this is. I think they're somewhere in Texas. Okay, paid 100%. I got further as pro se litigant. Takes time, study a lot. Okay, watching you speak makes me cry. Yeah, this is kind of a good little interaction because I think this lady was on one of our free calls. Super cool. I hope things are going well for you. And if it's not, then there you go. I'm still happy for you. But there's another lady interacting with her. You guys you should talk. That's a good thing. Okay. What do you need, Paul? How to confront your judge? Because she effing hates you. All right. I know you too. You used to be in the group. Okay. If your judge doesn't like you, fine, but they have to follow the law. All right. I'm going to wrap it up because I got to leave and we got a bunch of calls tomorrow. I have private calls and more community calls, big therapy calls. Um, I appreciate you guys, YouTube community. You guys are really awesome. And I thank you so much for, man, all this sort of good stuff. But I'm going to go. So we'll see you soon and be well. Next Tuesday, we'll be back on with a live stream. And I doubt there will be one before that, but we'll be back on with a live stream and we'll do a free community call. So if you're on the email list, we'll be there. Okay. I'll talk to you guys soon.